Matthew Cookson on the line with us this morning, political commentator, Young Voices, and we have a lot to talk about with him this morning. Our visit presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Don't know if anybody noticed, but there's a new president in town, and boy, is he flying out of the gates this morning. Matthew, this has been crazy the last couple of days, hasn't it?
It certainly has, as usual. Trump coming with fire and brimstone, making all kinds of headlines.
He's coming right at it. And yesterday, this was the announcement that Trump had pulled the security clearance of 51 national security officials. And we want to zero in on that one a little bit. 51 former national security officials released this public letter back in 2020. Are the 51 that Trump pulled their security clearances, are they those same 51 guys?
Yes, they are. That includes the list of former officials such as James Clapper, John Brennan, Leon Panetta, guys who have headed up the CIA, Department of Defense, so some major names in the defense and intelligence community.
That infamous letter, of course, detailed what they said was evidence of Russian involvement, but then subsequently it was proven to be completely debunked, and so there was no Russian information operation going on right there, and that really it did. I guess it corroded the public trust in those officials and in the security officials running our nation's very, very sensitive situation right now, and that would be behind what Trump did, right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Across institutions in our country right now, American confidence in those institutions is at an all-time low, and the intelligence community is certainly not exempt from that, especially after a stunt like this where we rely on these people to keep our nation safe and provide us with accurate intelligence as to the actions of our adversaries. And so to abuse the public's trust like this, I think it's perfectly reasonable to see them punished in this way with the loss of their security clearance.
Well, the security clearance, detail for us what that means. They're no longer in the positions of authority, and yet they are given the clearance to see some information that the rest of the public doesn't because they have certain levels of expertise, correct?
That's correct. And, as you mentioned, they are no longer cleared to receive sensitive intelligence from a government level, and also it does have employment verifications. It probably doesn't affect a lot of these guys as they're in the later stages of their career. However, if a defense contractor or something like that, a type of job pops up where you would need a security clearance in order to work the job, that could result in some lost employment opportunities for some of the people on this list.
And one would think that if you haven't been a part of the network and had those clearances for quite some time, you aren't as informed as maybe you would have been, and therefore that would disqualify you from maybe a competition with somebody else who's been in on getting all of this information.
That's absolutely right. As I mentioned, a lot of these guys haven't been in government for a number of years, so perhaps some of their skills aren't as sharp as people who are currently in the game. And, I think looking at this whole situation, the whole false labeling of the laptop as Russian disinformation, it either comes down to incompetence or malice. And either way, those are not the sorts of people you want to have security clearances for.
So when that is pulled from them, obviously they're not part of that loop. Others must be in that loop. So let's talk about the ramifications of they're no longer being a part of it. One would assume that they would be people that others within the agencies could call upon in the past and say, hey, what do you think of this situation? Here's what we're finding out about this situation in, say, Bulgaria. And now, what do you think? What's your opinion? What should be the direction we go? That sort of level of expertise to call upon and have as bench strength is no longer there.
Yeah, that's right. I think a lot of people in the media especially rely on these names to give them insight into what's going on in the world. And I think when you have this type of thing happen, these guys lose a lot of their credibility in terms of being reliable commentators if they've done things that have caused them to lose their clearance. So Again, we lose out on their insight for better or for worse, and also they lose out on potential media appearances and requests for comment and that sort of thing.
Question becomes then, do we have enough people on the bench to fill in? Are there enough people in the intelligence community now to be able to offer that kind of advice to the folks that are making the decisions?
I think so. These agencies have people who are very experienced in this area. So I think in any field, when some people step aside, others take their place. So it'll just be a matter of time if we tell if the people taking their place are better or worse at their jobs. Only time will tell.
President Trump, of course, coming into the office, has made a lot of promises in the foreign policy realm as well as in the domestic realm. And certainly the situation in Ukraine is one thing. The situation in the Middle East, particularly regarding Israel, and what seems to be their surrounding on all sides by many of their enemies. This is a particularly sensitive time in foreign policy for the United States. Do we have to tiptoe through this, or can you expect bold steps from the president?
I expect bold steps. I think over the past 4 years, we saw more of a restrained approach from President Biden, and I think that led us into a lot of the problems we're having now. Prior to the invasion of Ukraine, Biden was sort of giving off the impression that if Putin's invasion was on the smaller scale, then maybe we wouldn't do anything. And the way things fell apart in Afghanistan certainly gave the impression to the Iranians and their terror proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, that if they took action, little could be expected in response from the United States. So the time, I think, is now for strong leadership in terms of navigating this out of both the war in Ukraine and bringing the situation in the Middle East to a close.
Situation with Israel is interesting because for a lot of people it boils down to just take the shackles off Israel and let Israel do what Israel wants to do. I don't know if that's the wisest decision, or maybe it is. How does President Trump view that?
Well, there's certainly a balance to be played, and I think this is especially true in light of the fact that there's still almost 100 hostages still in Hamas control. And Hamas, as a terrorist group that despises not only Israel, but views the United States as the great Satan in their war, certainly cannot be trusted, nor should we seek to view them as long-term negotiating partners. But having said that, there are still a good number of hostages under their control, including a few American citizens. And so it's certainly a balancing act that we want Hamas to be punished as much as possible and removed as a fighting force. But while we do that, we certainly have to be aware of the fact that we want to get our hostages back and bring our people home.
Was this most recent deal a good one?
Well, it's tough to make a good deal with a terror group like Hamas, especially considering the fact that they always manage to get more people in return than the Israelis get back. So in terms of the people we got back, any hostage that is freed is certainly a victory. So to take a positive outlook on it, it's certainly good that every hostage that gets freed is something to be thankful for. But the longer Hamas is out there, they will always remain a threat to do these types of things in the future.
Matthew Cookson with us this morning. The group is Young Voices. Matthew, tell me about Ukraine. Now, there are a lot of people, even within Republican circles, that are of two differing opinions, two different approaches with Ukraine. And we don't know yet where President Trump comes down on it. It seems as if he wants to end the war no matter what, and that might involve giving some territory to Ukraine that Russia did not have before. Who does he listen to in this argument?
Well, again, it's a balancing act. I think we saw a lot of what led to where we are today is the fact that Biden had very soft leadership on this issue and was very unclear about what he viewed as the natural outcome to this war. And so as a result, we've gotten to a place where there is such pressure on one side to just come to a deal no matter what. And I think we also have to be cognizant of the fact that Ukraine just isn't capable of achieving what they would view as a total victory. We may sympathize with their desire to reclaim the territory that the Russians took from them, but the reality is that while Ukraine has been able to hold off the Russian invasion to a surprising extent, the fact remains that they are unable militarily to drive Russia out of a lot of the territory that has been seized from them in the course of this war.
All right, so there's plenty of foreign policy intrigue going on. President Trump has some decisions to make. Matthew, tell me about Young Voices. Where do we learn more about your group?
Yeah, so Young Voices is a group that provides an outlet for young writers to receive feedback, editing, and help pitching their work. Young Voices is active on X, where you can find me at Matt Cookson 95, and also at youngvoices.com. We have a number of contributors writing pieces on a wide variety of issues, so go to our website or check us out on X to find out more.
He is Matthew Cookson. Thanks so much for visiting with us today. Appreciate that.
Thank you for having me on.
Have a great day.